Today we're going to mix it up a little bit with some Q&A. We've had a lot of people writing in wonderful questions. We're really grateful for everyone who's reached out. The inbox has been flooded, and we really wanted to take our time to take every question one by one. We haven't had time to get to every single question, but what we've done is we've gone through the questions that people are asking most frequently. We want to address them just, one by one. And when we don't have the complete answer to a question, we're also reaching out to experts in the field in China, Japan, Singapore, Germany, who have specializations in these particular fields. We really want to bring you the best. Sometimes we have one of the best lenses or advantages, best perspectives for a particular area, but not always. But we do tend to know the people who have those areas of specification. Our first question comes from Christy from Eugene, Oregon. First off, I should say that her entire family is wonderful. Every family has a jerk in it, but hers really doesn't. Everyone's like 10% jerk, and they distribute it into their sense of humor. I used to be in the Lions Club with her dad, and we used to be like the bad kids in the back of the room and make jokes when the politicians or people wanted money for, Reiki on elephants or something like this. Anyway, her question is about sugar cravings, specifically craving sweets all of the time. Now, I have a traditional vantage point on this, but I also wanted to get some up-to-date research. So I looked at the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, 2010. There's an article on there about artificial sweeteners and neurobiology of sugar cravings by Qin Yang. Thank you, Qin Yang. Essentially what the article gets down to is that the sweet flavor itself stimulates appetite. It doesn't matter if it's real sugar or not, your body works in a very general way. And this is something we found with herbal pharmacology as well. When the body senses that something is sweet, it says, hey, let's open up our storehouses and just fill her up. Let's increase your appetite. Let's increase your pace of eating. On the other hand, when you eat something that's bitter, your body says, this is probably poison. We don't want to die. How about let's just purge it out and move it through as fast as we can. This is a generalized response. It's not always accurate, but it is efficient because we haven't evolved right next to every single plant on the planet, right? The body has these very generalized responses. If something is probably poisonous, your body interprets it as bitter. If it's probably nutritious, the body interprets it as being sweet. So when we get sweet, it causes alterations in our metabolism that cause us to increase our appetite. So it doesn't matter if there's less sugar. If you eat a little bit of something sweet and then it makes you want to eat an entire steak instead of half of the steak, you're going to be putting on weight. So the first rule to understand is that sweetness, as it's added to food by food manufacturers, is a trap. And the people who manufacture food know this. They'll say no sugar, but they know very well that because it has a sweet flavor, it will command you at a subconscious level to eat slightly quicker, to chew less, to swallow faster, and to store more of that as energy for the future. Now, why would they do this? Because obviously if you go through an entire package of cookies instead of eating 2 every week, you're going to buy more of that particular substance. So if it's a packet of cookies and it says no sugar whatsoever, but it's sweet, you're probably going to eat through more of it, and after doing so, you're more likely to eat other foods as well. Now, generally speaking, why do we crave sweets? Some people will say, I go through the day, everything's fine, I hit 3 or 4 o'clock, I just need to have something sweet at that time. And I particularly find this with people who are fairly intelligent, and they're also a little bit overweight. And this is because the brain requires sugar faster than the body's metabolism can produce it in a meaningful way. Your brain uses about 1/3 of all of your body's sugar. And if your body itself isn't making that available, then it wants that fast hit of sugar and will really command you to get it. So this is the bane of smart people. Being highly intelligent has its bonuses, but it also comes at a metabolic price. So in general, if you're craving sweets, there are 3 rules to follow. Number 1, be dumb. Now, some people have very intellectually demanding jobs, and then they come home and they want to watch a documentary, and then they want to do Sudoku, and they want to do things that are very intellectually engaging. Just remember that all of these have a price. So it's important to take time in your life to be stupid, to just be really, really dumb and gear down your brain and move more. So the 3 I would suggest are be dumb, move more, and eat bitter. If you're moving around more, your body is going to become more efficient at producing those sugars for you. So you can take some fat and your body its metabolism improves such that you can unlock from the fat, you can create sugars with it that your brain can use. Now, the 3rd one is to eat bitter. And the reason for this is because sometimes the sweet craving comes not because of something your brain needs necessarily, but because of certain gut bacteria that are wanting those sugars for themselves and their offspring. They're not really team players. They're not working with your whole gut. They're not working with your whole body. They're kind of doing their own thing in your gut saying, yeah, give us some sugar. And what they do is they trigger your opiate receptor sites. What they do is they cause you to feel, they block them first of all, so that you start to feel sad. And then when you give them what they want, they trigger the opiate receptor sites to give you a pleasurable, happy feeling. When you eat bitter foods, it tends to increase your peristalsis, the wave-like movements within your intestines. When that happens, it moves everything along its way, and then those bacteria which may be controlling you are more likely to die. Also, bitter-flavored plants tend to be more antifungal. And a lot of times it's a particular fungus which is also eating up on those sugars, which we see with, Candida and some other kind of ingrained fungal infections. So be dumb, move more, eat bitter. There's also a really good exercise for sugar cravings, which is called stomach massage. Basically, you put your hands together and then you massage your stomach a lot until you burp and fart as much as you can. I wrote about it specifically in the book Enlighten Weight, Cultivate the Garden Within, available on Amazon. So that's a very, very good exercise. I've had tremendous success with helping people to change their sugar cravings. And really all it's doing is helping your gut to work more efficiently. When your gut's working efficiently, then you don't tend to have those sugar cravings. A formula that's really commonly used in East Asia for sugar cravings, specifically for intelligent people who are thinking too much and moving too little, is called Gui Pi Wan. GUI space PI space WAN. And what this means is to enrich the spleen. And it's a formula that's very, very good at helping people to improve their digestion. And the pattern is people will be thinking, their mind is racing, they even have trouble getting to sleep at night. It's affecting their digestion. It has to do with an overworking brain and an underworking body. When I've had periods of time where I've been in intense study, I take Gui Pi Wan a lot. When I'm writing a book or, we're working intensely intellectually and I'm not having time to get up and do my exercises, I'll take Gui Pi to kind of ameliorate that a little bit. Not saying it's perfect, but life isn't perfect. Sometimes you use herbs to help you along the way. So again, that formula is called Gui Pi Wan. We'll put it in the show notes. So thank you very much for your question. Christy, give your family a hug. You guys are wonderful. Our next great question comes from Janet, coming from the Sierra foothills in California. Her question is really interesting. She has all of the airborne allergies you can imagine, but she has no food allergies, and this is really peculiar. When it comes to allergies, you have the gut bacteria as they interact with lymph and allergies, and it has the effect of causing immune cells to not mature appropriately. And it's these immature immune cells that cause kind of a generalized immune response, and it's not very specific. And this is generally something that you can correct with diet to a degree. However, there are cases where your diet doesn't have much to do with it at all. And I'm not saying that it has nothing to do with it, but the diet will be a few steps away metabolically. In these cases, it's where there are low levels of a gas called hydrogen sulfide. There's a podcast episode we did about how gases and bacteria can affect your body. It's a very wonderful podcast. You should listen to it if you haven't already. But there's a particular gas called hydrogen sulfide. If you have too much of it, it can cause asthma and allergies. If you have too little, it also has this association. But it's also associated with menopausal symptoms and other signs of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal thyroid axis challenges. So oftentimes, I'm not saying this is the case with Janet, but oftentimes if you have challenges with the HPA axis, then the levels of hydrogen sulfide will be too low to cause an anti-inflammatory reaction within the lungs. So then every little thing you encounter, you get this kind of hypersensitivity to it. And this is a little bit different from those cases when it's more having to do with the gut bacteria, spleen, and lymph through that pathway. So they're different pathways. It's kind of like running a car motor without any oil. You don't have any coolant, so then it gets hot really quickly, much hotter than it needs to. And this is kind of what can happen with people's immune systems. And again, I'm not saying specifically that this is what's happening, but with cases where there are no food allergies whatsoever, but people are getting the airborne allergies, this is usually the first place I look. There's a paper I just found from the European Journal of Pharmacology 2013. They found was, quote, recent studies show that endogenous hydrogen sulfide plays an anti-inflammatory role in the pathogenesis of airway inflammation. This study investigated whether exogenous H2S hydrogen sulfide may counteract oxidative stress-mediated lung damage in allergic mice. So this is an area that many scientists are looking into. Traditionally, the way we would look at this is we would say the hydrogen sulfide, traditionally we would call kidney qi. We would say, okay, this person has low kidney qi, and that's what's causing the allergic reactions. What are some traditional ways to increase kidney qi? Doing Tai Chi, meditation, eating seafood. These are all ways that are thought traditionally to nourish the kidney. As well, there are herbal formulas that can be used. However, it would be irresponsible to name a certain herbal formula because I don't know all of the particulars of Janet's challenges, and I wouldn't want to misdiagnose or misprescribe anything without complete information. But as a general ballpark idea, I would look into the traditional ideas of boosting kidney qi. There are many exercises that you can do at home that are free to no cost whatsoever. You can find a lot of kidney qi qigong programs on YouTube, and for the most part, they're correct. Next question is from Anna from Northern California. She says, my name is Anna and I love listening to your podcast. I started listening to you after I heard you talk on the Fat Burning Man Show. Thank you, Fat Burning Man Show, and thank you, Abel. Back to the quote. Your show is educational as well as entertaining, but sadly really short. Well, thank you, and we will do our best to remedy the shortness. And now for some of the questions that I have about teas. I live in Northern California, and we have a lot of tea houses. At least, that's how they are called. Some of them offer oolong ice or hot tea and pu'er tea. So my question, are those teas good, or are they just good for thirst and not so much for the health benefits? So to answer this question, I have to preface by saying there isn't a tradition in China of having iced tea. So from a traditional standpoint, I can only speak theoretically, and that is, oolong may have the prebiotics. However, once you're icing it, I'm not sure that you would get the blood circulation and the metabolism necessary to really utilize that. Now, would iced oolong be better than, say, an iced cola? Yeah, probably. But you've got to look at it like this. You have temperature, you have moisture, and you have gut bacteria. You can grow a banana tree in the tropics, but it's much harder to grow that banana tree in Antarctica. Perhaps with added extra energy it can be done. So my preference would be to have the hot tea compared to the iced oolong tea or iced pu'er tea. But if it's a choice between iced tea and iced sugar, I would prefer to have the iced tea in that case because you're doing comparatively less damage. I would also suggest that if there is research on oolong or on pu'er tea that comes from Singapore, which is where some of the research I found was from, it would absolutely be taken hot in East Asia. People wouldn't be having iced tea and doing the research on it. So when you see the weight loss benefits, the effects on metabolism, this is assuming a warmer temperature. So once you take it out of that context, then it wouldn't be something that you could really say that the research is supporting. It would be kind of a new thing altogether. Maybe better, maybe worse. I can't say because there isn't a tradition behind it and there isn't research behind it. Next question Anna has is, I've also purchased in the Asian Pacific market pu'er tea, but it's bagged. Does it still possess the health benefits? Answer, yeah, probably. A lot of the benefits of tea, the pu'er tea, are in the polyphenols, which, even Earl Grey is going to have that. It's, often sold in kind of a cake form, but yeah, tea bags are just fine. There's some people who are really into tea, kind of tea snobs, and they'll be like, oh, you're drinking it out of a tea bag, you filthy savage. Whatever. We drink a lot of tea out of bags. We drink it from the bricks too. It's both fine. The third question. In your memory boosting podcast, what would you recommend, pills or tea? And for tea, in the directions on the website, it says to steep it and then pour off the first. Can I drink the second steep, or is it more like the third or fourth? So if you're talking about pills or tea, really, personally, I will take both, because pills will often lack some of the essential oils in the tea, but they allow you to not have a tremendous amount of tea to get the same benefits. So what I've found is, if I am not able to get all of the raw Chinese herbs and boil them up, then what I'll do is I'll take the pills, have 8 3 times a day. And then what I'll do is I'll just have some of the herbal tea in a tea bag form, maybe a few bags, and I keep adding hot water to it until there's no taste to it. So first steep is great. Second, third, fourth, I just keep going until there isn't any flavor, which is generally, by late afternoon. And that's completely fine.
Hey Anna, this is Lan. Speaking of the tea, I noticed one thing is that in America, a lot of times people get the tea and after one soak, the tea will lose its flavor and color. It's not the case at all in China, or it's not the case with good quality tea. For example, like Tibetan goji berries we talked about in the Vision podcast. The real goji berries, they won't lose the color and flavor until after 5 soaks. But if it's really bad quality goji berries, you will get only probably 2 soaks from it, and that's it. It's the same with the other good quality like pu'er tea, oolong tea. You will keep having flavors probably after at least 3-4 soaks. So I think that's a way to tell if the tea you get is a good quality or not. And I also mentioned that some website will tell you to steep the tea, then pour off the first, then start to drink the second steep. This is right for certain types of tea, such as fermented pu'er tea or 铁观音, because in Cha Dao tea ceremony, it's a custom that you use the first steep to wash off the tea, the fermented tea. However, it's never correct for green tea, such as 竹叶青 or 峨眉毛峰. The water temperature you use to steep the tea is different too. So for black tea, fermented tea, such as pu'er tea, 铁观音, you use boiling water, which is 100 centigrades. However, for green tea, you don't use boiling water. You will use the water that, after you boil the water, let it sit for a few minutes, let it cool down a little bit, down to, let's say, 90 centigrades, and that's the water you use to steep the green tea.
She ends by saying, thank you in advance for your help, and again, great podcast. Can we have more? Well, thank you. That's very encouraging. We will definitely do our best to bring you more, not just from ourselves, but from some of the best experts we know of from around the planet. Our next question comes from Todd. Todd wants to know, which herbs are good to get rid of Candida? This question requires a little bit of nuance. I see a lot of therapies which claim to kill Candida. It's not quite that simple, because you have to adjust gut flora one way or the other. You also have to look at the entire working of the immune system, as well as herbs which directly attack the Candida itself. If you just use something that may be very bitter, but the person's system is already cold, you can potentially make it worse, even when that particular herb works for other people. So when it comes to Candida or these kind of systemic infections, it's important that you approach it with nuance and customization. We'll cover this in much more depth in our upcoming podcast with Mark Mastrandrea, who's both a professor and student at Beijing TCM University. He's already an acupuncturist in the United States, but he's gone there for advanced training, and his special interest is in using botanical medicines for infectious diseases. He has incredible insight as far as Candida and other chronic infectious diseases, and I think he's a better person to answer this question in detail. So please stay tuned, look for updates. He's very passionate about this topic, and I know he'll deliver incredible content. Today we're going to go through the drawing to see which one of you who has rated the podcast, taken a screenshot, and send us an email at botanicalbiohacking@gmail.com will win this month's prize. Isn't it nice to win prizes? I think so. I hope you win all the prizes. So what we've done is we've taken the names, we've put them in a bowl. It's actually a salad bowl, and I'm going to root through them and pick one out at random. So, say a prayer and hope you win. All right, here we go. Paper's rattling. This one feels correct. And let's see. It is Jason Gazdick, who has qigongvacations.org. So congratulations, Jason. We're going to send this right out to you. Please email us your address. You won some ginseng and goji berry tea. So congratulations. Make sure that you're telling your friends and family to check out our podcast, rate and review. Each month, one of you guys will win a prize of, an herbal product we ourselves use and feel is pretty good. And then at the end of the year, one of you will be chosen to come with us to China if you want to. We'll go to Sichuan and check out the herb fields. You can meet some of our friends there who are experts in Chinese medicine and martial arts. It should be a good time.
Thank you again for listening to Botanical Biohacking. For more information, please go to botanicalbiohacking.com. We'll have more links, we'll have more information in the show notes.